Hello, hello! Welcome to Oye Dimelo Cinema Club. This week we have a special treat for you. We are reviewing Night of the Hunter from 1955. So I just want to jump right into it, no spoilers, and get our first impressions. Whoever wants to start.
All right. Well, I guess I'll go. First impression. This is an interesting film. I've never seen. First off, it's very dark. I've never seen anything this dark from the 50s. This thing's it's not quite like anything I've ever seen before either. The whole time I was watching it, it kept like escalating, and I kept saying like, "Oh, okay, this is like a 1950s film. Oh, this is not like a 1950s film. Oh, this is a little darker than most 1950s films. Oh, where's this thing going? How dark is this about to get? Are they trying to say something that I think they're trying to like?" It kept getting worse and worse in a very awesome way. This movie is really fantastic. It's a masterpiece. I did a little research and found out it was Charles Lawton's first and only film he ever directed, and the critics tore him apart about it because America just wasn't ready for a film like this. This is not anything that anyone had ever seen before, and he was very depressed with how the critics and audiences responded. The movie didn't make very much money; it was basically a flop, and he died shortly after. And a lot of people think it was heartbreak because he put himself into this movie, put his heart into this movie. And Charles Lawton, in case you guys don't know, I mean, terrific actor in his own right. I mean, he played Quasimodo in Hunchback of Notre Dame. He's really great. Um, yeah, this thing kind of blew me away a little bit. Robert Mitchum, fantastic. What a baddie. And the love hate on his fingers, like this is probably the first time that's been in a film, I imagine. This is the earliest film that I've seen it in, and it's been in everything since. It's been even in like an episode of The Simpsons, I believe. Um, yeah, this movie's really cool, man. There's a lot to like about it. Not a whole lot to hate, in my opinion. I'm really glad that you picked this, Michaela, because it is on the 100 or 1,000 list. So maybe I would have gotten to it eventually, but it wasn't really anything that was on my short list. So this is really terrific that I got to this one at this point of the journey, and I'm really excited to hear why you picked it when you're ready to tell us. But
Yeah,
that's my first thought, my initial thought.
all right.
I'll go. I'll go. Yeah, I hadn't seen this. I agree with a lot of Jason. Before I forget, I was like, is Spike Lee? Is that where he got the love and hate? Was it from this? Because there's I can't remember what the speech in Spike Lee's is, but it was clearly
Yep.
also
I watched a Spike Lee interview about an hour ago, and in fact, he stole this from the movie, and the character says the same exact monologue as Robert Mitchum about why the love and hate.
Oh, it is. Because I was like, I couldn't remember, but I was like, I know it was also an epic kind of speech because I saw that movie when I was young. I guess when it first came out, probably too young to be watching a Spike Lee joint, and so that really made an imprint on my psyche for sure. And so when watching this, I'm like, oh my God, is this where it came from? I oh man, I had so much. I don't know. I might have just been tired. I also drove. I had just driven from San Diego, but I there's a lot to love. I feel like I was getting the vibes from Night of the Living Dead, just because it's kind of horror thrillery. I'm like, is this kind of like the first Jason or like first baddie that just won't go away? You know, like just keeps showing up, like, and at the same time, then, um, I almost thought he was gonna spoilers. He was gonna escape the cop car at the end, because it was like, "We're saving him for you." Oh yes, sir. I'm looking forward to it. And then I was like, "Ooh, he's gonna sneak out," and we don't know. Maybe he did, right? Because that's like what the Jason movies and Halloween movies is, right? They're like a huge mob, and it's like he's gonna be able to get out of it. I will say this movie got super dark. I was really surprised as well for the time and all that. But man, could I just punch that old lady at the beginning? Any of those characters, especially these older films of that. You gotta get married. You can't be a mom of 2 kids without a man. And in comes this random dude who has tattoos. And this is the 50s. He's got love and hate. And because he does a cool little, whatever it is, like all of a sudden it's like marriage quality, no, come on, get out of here. I hate that old lady. I hate every single character role that is just like that old lady that's trying to bring in scripture. But good God, I hated him too. And that's a great acting because he was so despicable. And it's just that, point of being able to just, it's a great bad guy, evil guy. Yeah, great little. The singing. Is this the first time where like a evil guy is just doing these like gospel songs and shit? Where it's just like, oh, it's really nice singing. Oh, does he mean that? But I didn't see this movie taking that turn. I thought like, oh, he got arrested for a car theft or something. That's weird. Oh, he's meeting that guy. Like, oh, and I didn't see the twisted turns that I was gonna be taken. So, anyway, that's my 10 cents on the film.
All right, JP, Steve.
I'll go real quick. So, I was very shocked about this movie. Of course, because of the time and like in cinematography wise, it had like some very cool movements. But at the same time, I was just fascinated by certain themes. Like, for example, I was like, wow, white people be stealing in the 50s and they be getting arrested too? Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Like, I couldn't believe that. I was like, I was very shocked about all of that. And just the themes of this movie, in particular, when certain things, like for example, like all it took like was to buy this lady ice cream, so she like just fall for you. I was like, wow, how were those times? I was like, those were mainly like the culture shock. I get time shock or whatever you call that I had. But I was just like, just thinking about like how that world was in the 50s, that it was just being portrayed. To like just compare it to now, it's just like, whoa. It's crazy.
Well, she did complain about the milk prices. So, I mean, clearly they were dealing with some stuff. But I thought it was set a little before 55. It seemed like they were dealing with a depression still. But anyway,
the movie came out in 1955, but it takes place during the Great Depression.
Yeah, they did talk about the depression.
So, I mean,
So if a nice man comes along and buys you an ice cream and a magazine, yeah, you're going to be pretty impressed.
Got the little bow tie. Anyway, sorry, go on, Steve. Just wanted to...
Meanwhile, how much was 10 grand?
So, I looked it up, and 10 grand in 1955 was 111,000. But really, I should have been looking at depression prices.
Yeah, that would have been
still
scary.
155. Yeah, in the 50s, it's still a lot.
It's a good
Because
choice.
I was thinking the whole movie, like he's chasing these kids for 100,000. But I mean, I guess somebody would chase kids today for 100,000, right? So I don't know. I have to do some math. I'll figure it out.
I would definitely punt a toddler for that much money.
Or how much money was Macaulay Culkin getting persecuted for?
Oh my God.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Home Alone.
Home Alone.
Oh, like they wanted to rob the house. So, I mean, he had a rich family, right?
Yeah. And then
Upper middle class.
And then in Alone in New York, that was just personal. So
Anyways, back
This
to the
time
movie
is
we're
personal.
supposed to talk about.
okay. Oh yeah, that's right. Me. We didn't get to me yet. Oh boy. Not since Willy Wonka have I just absolutely indulged in the suffering of children. And I love that the director saw all the magic tricks in The Wizard of Oz with Judy Garland and said, what if I did that for evil? And also, Tucker Carlson's performance here as the murderous Reverend is quite a delight. I am shocked that I love this movie. But I will say I agree almost wholeheartedly with Dino. But not only towards Icy, ironic name. She works in a ice cream parlor,
Yeah.
and her name is Icy. But I also hated, I believe Jason and Des talked about her. I hated Ruby and Pearl, that bastard little girl.
She was 6.
I don't care. They had to nerf all the females in this movie so that our main man Willa, old lady Willa, who took care of baby John and all them dumb fucking kids in this movie, she's the fucking boss in this fucking movie. I loved her so much. I was just telling Kayla during the whole time, I was like, if the director does any harm to this woman, I'm gonna quit. It's like,
I also love that instead of the route of cat lady, she went from, kids.
as God intended.
I will say though, dude has a knife chasing a kid under the steps. You got the gun, and then dude says, "I'll be back with knife." Bang, bam! Shoot that bitch right there. Don't wait for nightfall. What are you doing, lady?
I was thinking the same thing, but then she's going to go to jail for murdering this dude, right?
She's got a knife.
She probably didn't even have ammunition, to be honest. If it's during the Depression or Dust Bowl or where the shit.
Yeah, true.
But then
Do you guys want to see a picture of Lillian Gish when she was a young silent film star?
Oh man, she's gonna be so pretty.
Yeah.
So pretty. Wow. And she still looked good at it, like she still looked good, and like the fact that she was a silent. Wow.
Oh, during the recording of this review, this was during the holidays. Isn't it great that this turned out to be a fucking Christmas movie?
I was thinking the same thing. Night of the Hunters is a Christmas movie.
Take that, Die Hard.
Yeah, no, all right. So only person left is me, truly. I chose this film because I originally saw an excerpt on TikTok about it, and all of the pictures were just so pretty. So, like, I kind of went into this thinking that this was going to be like a goofy 1940, like, evil doctor, like, cut 'em up gangster movie, because that's what, like, typically this kind of film would have been during that time. And wow, it's kind of like finding a the missing link for like so many of the things I love. And like the cinematography is gorgeous, the music is bone chilling in the best way possible. Like, I think it's a genuine shame that this was this man's only movie. Like, if he had been born like 10 years later and made it to the 70s, I can only imagine what film would look like. You know, like, we really had a loss there. And I'm so glad that I watched it. I think this is something I'm going to revisit again and again and again.
Every Christmas.
Every Christmas.
It might actually.
Yeah. So I guess, like, the first thing we should talk about is, like, the cinematography. Like, that's the thing that struck me most in this film. So, like, was there any favorite shots or any way that he used the camera to really just deepen this entire story?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's some really amazing cinematography. The ones that really caught me off guard and I just thought were beautiful were the basement scenes when they're walking up and down the basement steps and where the camera's placed and the lighting from the steps and how they light the basement. I thought, oh, that was great. I really like which was confusing at first, was the underwater scene when the mom is like buried in the car underwater. Because at first I'm like, how is he seeing down into that deep, dark, dank lake? But then like the use of sunlight going into the water to shoot that thing, I was like, how did they shoot that? Did they shoot this underwater? Did they shoot this in a tank? It looks amazing. Those are the two that really caught me off guard. But there's a ton of great cinematography in this thing. Just the use of light and shadows, and it being a black and white film.
Yeah, no, agreed. Like, I can't get like when he goes into the mom's room right before he's about to murder her, like the shadows in that.
Oh yeah,
incredible. That in the shot where he's on the horse and he walks by and the kid sees him.
Oh, that's great. That's like classic.
So good. It was so good.
Yeah,
like
that was peak like old time cinema. Like, it was pretty. This use of silhouettes. For me, I think. Hopefully, we talk about it later. I'm sure you will, because this is a shot that you saw in the breakdown. But because the shots for me that like got me like whoa were the ones that were like, how did they do that back then? Was definitely the underwater shots, and then anything that looked like an aerial or a crane. Because it didn't look high enough to be a helicopter shot, but it definitely didn't look low enough to be a crane shot. And there was nothing in the environment that suggested that, oh, this was done on a plane or something, because there was no wind or anything to like on the ground, on the trees and whatnot. Because I think they did the same sort of shots in the one movie that Chris suggested of the chain gang in like bumfuck Oklahoma or whatever the fuck. I don't remember what it's called. Cool Hand Luke, that's the one where there's even a few shots in that one where you could tell, oh, this was partially an aerial because you could see disruption in the grass. But in this one, I didn't see it. Right. So those shots, and those cameras are heavy. Like, that's big-ass equipment. Like, how the fuck did they get away with that shot? That's what I want to know. Those are the shots that, as simple as those were, like, those are the ones that got me.
Yeah, no, and, like, I'm glad that you brought that up because, like, that was, like, the thing that I think made this movie so wonderful, too. It's just, like, it's very rare that you find a film nowadays where you're just like, how did they do that? Mm-hmm. And, like you said, like, not only were the aerial shots, but, like, the tank shot. There's just so many things in this film where I'm just, like, he really used movie magic to like the nth degree.
And I know so for me, like, kind of adding on what you guys are also saying and all the different silhouettes, the underwater is just so spooky for sure. And I was just surprised because I kept going back like, okay, this is on set, and then this looks too good to be on set, right? And then this is on a sound stage. No, is it outside? Like, I was really back and forth at times, and clearly they're like, here's the turtle, here's the owl. And I'm like, I feel like those are the tricks to, like, we're outside in the wilderness, even though it probably was, a lot of it was set in sound stage. But it didn't look like the other black and white films where even, what is it, the Maltese Falcon or whatever, right? Like, there, and again, that's big city, right? So definitely it feels way more set wise. But yeah, this, I was just surprised how good it looked, of just the usage of it looking in the real world versus being in, on a sound stage. So all that looked really well, I thought, and just adding to the same ones you guys pointed out.
Like, honestly, though, like, if I could, like, call this anything, I think I would call this that. Like, this is what American Gothic, when they talk about that, this is what they mean. Like, this is what they mean. Like, this is such an... It's so weird how it's, like, so culturally us. Or is that just me?
Sorry, nope, you're 100% right. This is 1,000% American Gothic. That's exactly what this thing is.
Well, look at that now. Also, all the Tiger King and all those kind of like catfishing schemes and everything, and like the podcast about like multiple murders and all that. Like, at the end, it's like he had gotten married and killed 10 of his previous wives. Oh, it was 5. But
25.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
20.
25. Yeah, 25.
Shit, half the U.S., one in each state, I guess. But
Yeah.
because I was wondering, the movie starts with like you see the lifeless leg of a woman, and I was like, what is that to do with anything? But that's what all America is kind of obsessed with now. Is just like these kind of like evil people that are able to con their way into like different groups or different, whether it's religion or banking system or schools or whatever, politician. And yeah, you just say, I'm a preacher, I believe in God. And it's like, what denomination? It's like, the one I have with God myself, type of thing. And yeah, it's so crazy. I feel like why it got butchered is probably because the kids were such a big part in the movie, and they did great. Clearly, the little girl is kind of there more just as but still, both of the kids overall like killed it. Like, I mean, I thought they were very convincing. I mean,
I thought all the kids were great. None more so than the little girl where they asked where her parents were. She goes, "My daddy's in Detroit," and I was like, "Mine too, little girl." I understood. I understood her pride and pain in that.
is your daddy in the other room right now?
Yeah.
It's like a Norman Rockwell painting if he was depressed or a sociopath.
Well, like that's what I found so astounding about this film is they were touching on stuff. Like this was 1955, and he was talking about like the crazy shit that was happening in religion at the time, especially in the South. He was talking about like serial murder years before. Like this was before Manson. Like
Yeah.
put your head around that. This was before the Manson murders.
Yeah, this dude was a full-on serial killer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Straight up.
really like what Dino said when he said, like, this is kind of not his words, but he said basically this is an early slasher flick,
Mhm.
right? Before like the Jason Voorhees and the Michael Myers. Like this dude is a full-on serial killer who won't go away.
Yeah, no, like he's such a scary bad guy too. He's such a good bad guy. Ugh.
And he was charming. He could sing. And
Yeah.
I love the moment. I love the scene where like he sings and everybody loves him singing, but him singing on the front porch at night or whatever, and the woman starts singing the hymn along with him. I'm like, what does this mean?
That was so dope. And I mean, he took the knife from the dad because the dad had that the switchblade or whatever in prison. So dude even jacked his knife and then went and killed his the dad wife with the dad's knife. Like, how sick
Wait,
is that?
the
Also,
dad had a switchblade in prison?
yeah.
No,
No, wait.
he showed the switchblade in prison. Like he was straight up threatening.
Yeah,
The
he
dad.
said, "Where'd you get that switchblade from?" He says, "I snuck it in. The officers didn't see it."
Yeah.
Oh,
he's
I
not
thought
because
the dad had the
in the-
knife.
like, in the
It was the
burlesque
preacher
show?
with the knife.
Because like that was another scene that like I was just like, oh my god, he knows exactly what this pathology is. Because like there's that shot where he's in the burlesque and you see the knife poke through his jacket.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that
was
joke.
that was in a 50s movie. Like, oh my god.
So what were they saying with that? What was happening? It felt like he wanted to kill that woman, right?
Yeah, but like it's kind of like I feel so stupid comparing this to because we talked about Hunchback for a little bit because when the director was in Hunchback, right? Like kind of like the whole Frollo thing, like I'm tempted by this shit, but because I'm a man of God, I'm gonna kill that shit too. So like he's obviously aroused by the burlesque show. But because of his arousal, he's like, oh, this proves that this is evil. This is making me harder, you know?
Yeah, no.
I feel like Michael Shannon would be playing that part. Like it's got a little bit of those vibes of early Boardwalk Empire, but with a serial killer vibes. I thought the knife belonged to the dad, but I guess it belonged to the preacher from the get go.
Does that know?
So many levels of creepiness for sure. I just wanted to punch that old lady. Like, stop meddling in other people's business.
But that's how small towns are. So, Steve, what were some of your favorite shots in the film?
I also have to agree. Like the underwater scenes were like very crazy. The the shots like the most of the shots that were like the most memorable for me were at the very beginning. And there was a lot of like really interesting camera work that they did there that I was like, whoa. But this movie being from the 50s is like really dope cinematography. Um, and typically, when I watch films that are more like black and white, they don't have like it's easier for me to tune out because they don't have interesting camera shots versus like this movie had a lot of different ways to captivate people and keep them going within the story. What are you gonna say, Dina?
Just that I think what you're trying to say that usually the black and white are feel flat, just like
Yeah,
two dimensional. But this one, it had a lot of angles that went back and forth,
Yeah,
which
definitely.
I think is also why I thought it looked like not just like a studio film lot or whatever, because it had so many different kind of angles or shots that they played with. Anyway, good one.
Yeah. Well, then I guess next we should just like talk about like favorite and least favorite characters, because we've already kind of into that. Yeah. So I'll go ahead and start. Like I genuinely agree with JP that the lady Lillian Gish, her performance was so solid, and also Peter Graves. Like that movie wouldn't have happened if he hadn't had done such a good job. Like talk about perfect casting. Um, you know, and like I have to agree. Like Icy kind of needed to chill,
Right.
literally.
Yep.
Oh man, I'm gonna be cheating with this one because like I feel like there's a difference between favorite character and like best performance. Because I'm kind of like leading with your like I really like Willa's character. So you know the old lady who's bringing up the children, and she ends up like as hokey as it is, like she's kind of like the moral backbone of the movie. She even kind of gives that like whole tagline in the end that kind of sets up the moral and whatnot. It sounds very novelty, like very much like oh this is straight up from a fucking book, which at times I'll admit I kind of hate because I think people who write novels versus people who write screenplays and whatnot tend to be a bit more pretentious and like to masturbate with their literary work. So so I was like, oh, like this sounds so much like a fucking book right now. But I absolutely love her. She was my favorite character.
Mhm.
But my favorite performance does have to be the serial killer guy because he had to work with so many layers, especially for like back then where like you couldn't really get away with that on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Where and it almost felt like his performance almost for me felt like kind of like a straight play, like a really intimate, like small theater. This isn't on Broadway. It's not bombastic. Like really, because not only does he have to play charming, but he has to be a fucking menace. He has to be scary, and well, all that was going on. And of course, you know, our main girl Willa, she caught that fucking snake oil fucking real quick. It's like this bitch never read a Bible. This bitch never read a book. Those hands got Sharpie on them. That's how fake this man is. And my least favorite character, I said from the beginning, was Pearl. I absolutely hated that child. She suffered from the worst Stockholm syndrome in the fucking world. She almost got John murdered so many fucking times. So ungrateful. And it's like, I get that my man John is there to save what's left of his fucking family. But I would have cut as soon as the coast was clear. I would have taken Dolly and left Pearl alone. Left her to her own fucking devices. The moment we see the preacher back in this film in the third act, guess what she does? Runs to him. Fucking my wife every fucking morning in this movie where it's like, oh yeah, I forgot that this guy broke my leg. Oh, I forgot that this guy tried to murder my brother. You know?
He straight up killed her mom.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot that this guy like came when both my mommy and daddy disappeared. Like, I hated that little kid, and I ain't sorry.
Poor little Pearl. Poor little Pearl.
I'll say it again. The lady with the did they have the soda shop? Because even her husband was kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of weird, and she's like, no, and like trying to set them up and all that, and so the mom a little bit also. I got some hair. That how do you get married not knowing that you aren't gonna be boning? Like that'd be weird. Like, hey, our wedding night, we're gonna bone, right? Like that's why we're back in that day. That's why you got married because you could bone and it was legal. And then all of a sudden she's like, "Woo!" and it's like, "Wow, no boning anymore." What? Mind blowing. And she even gets at the right before her death, like that's how powerful he is, right? That she's kind of in, like she knows what he did, but sees it still as kind of like this sign of God type of thing of like, it's because I've been bad type of motive. But yeah, definitely the old lady that kept pushing them. I mean, he just plays evil so great, like so very good. And then yeah, the old lady, which I don't know if I'm gonna probably go on a little tangent pretty soon, but that Lillian lady, or if that is that her name, the one with a shotgun,
Lillian Gish, the actress.
yeah, she made it to 99. First off, whew.
Wow. God.
But if this is like darker than some of the Hitchcock movies.
I thought the same thing, man.
And so you saying that this was kind of it for him? That's what I'm thinking. It's got to be because of the kids, right? And probably the religious aspect of it that I got like didn't do well, because I'm like, if Hitchcock would have come up with something like this, I feel like it would have been revered.
Well, sorta. You have to consider that Psycho came out in 1960, so Psycho came out 5 years after this.
Oh, Hitchcock must have, like, if he found out about this film, he must have been so pissed.
So this predates, like, giant Hitchcock.
Right. Well, no, I know, but just he did stuff before there, and Lillian did appear, I guess, in the Hitchcock Hour later, so that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, that was kind of it. So yeah, like that old lady, like, mind your goddamn business, lady.
All right, Jason.
I'm trying to. Before I made a mistake. Willow was the mom. So, but I don't remember the old lady's name, and I feel bad. I'm trying to figure out the real names here. But yeah, go on. Sorry about that.
So it's kind of interesting, Gino's take on the older couple, the woman who fixes them up together. She was just all the way wrong about this guy. She's just being pushy, and she's the exact reason why I won't let anybody fix me up with anybody, because this lady got it all wrong from jump. Oddly enough, it's like a dichotomy to her is the husband, right? Because he suspected the guy all along. He's like, I don't trust him. He's like, this guy's giving me the willies. And she's like, no, he's great. He's a preacher. So, like, I don't know if it was designed that way. But then, like, by the end of the film, she had done a 480 flip and she wanted the guy's blood. She goes, let's lynch him up. And I think maybe she wanted his blood most of all because she was the most easiest. I mean, she was duped the most, right? Mm-hmm. And she is responsible for this tale really taking place. Like, if she doesn't push this poor woman to marry this guy, she probably doesn't. and that's the end of it. This guy is going to have to find another way to get that money, right?
Oh, all of a sudden she had an axe.
Yeah, no. Like I think that's like what makes this movie so interesting too, is because it's playing with themes that you don't see played with. You know, because like that is literally like religious fervor and hypocrisy shown out to in display. And this isn't a European movie. This is an American movie, which is just like that's what makes it so interesting. Because like there's also like a feeling of like this is taking place in the South, and it's just such an interesting little zeitgeist. Like I'm so sad that he didn't make it anything else because I would have loved to see how that would have progressed.
Yeah, me too.
We weren't ready, I guess.
Unfortunately,
He was too cool for school.
America wasn't ready for what this guy was dishing out. That's a fact.
I know, because like, could you imagine like the stuff he would have done in the 70s?
Yeah.
You know, like if he was here in the 50s, like Peckinpah would have like God, that would have. I just can't can only imagine just how much farther we would have been in narrative structures and cinematography if he would have just if someone just given him more chances.
The crazy part about it is that this movie picks up steam more and more every year with like a new group of film goers. This is a movie that's added to a lot of syllabuses in film school, from what I understand. So a lot of film students end up seeing this thing for all the reasons really that we're talking about it right now. This thing it's really before its time. And it kind of is like, it's kind of a perfect jump off for a lot of genre specific movies that people love today.
Oh yeah, 100%. So I guess.
No, go for it.
Oh, I was just gonna say, since we talked about favorite characters and stuff, like I feel like it's been a while since I felt like seen a film that has genuinely had moments where like I had gotten chills, you know, and like one of that we brought it up before was the moment when they were both singing, the older woman and the
Rachel and Reverend Powell, I think.
Yes, Reverend Powell.
Or Preacher Powell.
And it's just like that moment just was so intense because you could just, it was like such a peaceful, quiet moment, but you could tell that they were like battling over these children's souls in a way. And they're like doing this duet that's almost like a fight in its own way. And
plus it also like, I noticed that it was kind of like, because I kind of like made fun while we were watching the movie. It's like, wouldn't it be great if it turns out like that's like the Reverend's mom or some shit? Because you know they at the go we both know that they're both people of God and people of religion, and you know when he sings his song, it's very much of an offensive. Like he will be doing evil in the name of God. But then once Rachel sings, she's singing it in the perspective of this is for the not an offense but a defense, right? Righteousness to protect, not to attack, you know. And it's so crazy because like it's beautiful and it's frightening. And then of course I mentioned earlier that that he does he does fucking Wizard of Oz wizardry shits, and that's what he does with the whole lighting of the candle next to the screen where we can no longer see Hal, and then you know, and that's when the whole like, oh my god, like this fucking the fucking the shape moment. I was like, oh my god, where is he? You know,
for sure.
Also, the fucker was on a fucking tree trunk over the fence. It's like, no, he's on your property now. You have more than more than a right to just shoot his ass right now. But we wouldn't have had that great moment if that happened. So
of like creepy moments that you were saying, I think there are a lot, but the one again, just because it's the kid that sells it, the boy, is when they've gotten off the boat and they're sleeping in the barn, and he kind of wakes up and you see the moon, right, like move, and then the silhouette of him riding his damn horse at night singing, and the kid is just like, does he never sleep? You know, like it's one of the like that's where it felt like slasher movies and stuff where the kids, how at the town, that old lady was like, got the postcard, and it's like, been gone a week, right? So it's like a week on a boat down the river, and dude's on a horse and is able to like still catch up. Like that's slasher shit where you're like, there's no way this guy survived that, or there's no way that so slow of a slasher is able to find you all the way around. But this does it in a somewhat believable kind of way, and that's so creepy because the kid at that point is just kind of runs out of ideas, right? Like keep going, I guess. And then like almost right after that falls asleep on the boat, and that's when the boat kind of ends up on the bank there by where the where little old lady was, and it starts whipping them. Just whipping strangers, just whipping little kids that were on a boat. So you don't know where they came from. That boat belongs to someone, but just like, let me get a switch. Watcha. Like, anyway, but so I was really worried for the kids. Like, don't fall asleep on the boat. Wake up. Like the sun was kind of rising. Wake up. The boat hits the bank. I'm like, wake up. He's gonna be right there. But yeah, so I did really, really good job of kind of raising it.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad you brought that up because there's like a lot of also very interesting shots. Like you were saying that it was weird that they brought up like a lot of the animal shots, but like there was a couple like you could just tell that it had double meaning where like when they focused on the rabbits, you could see how they were like supposed to be the kids in that situation. There was like even a shot where like they're floating down and there's a spider web and Pearl is specifically in the center of that.
Uh-huh.
You definitely saw a lot more than I saw those images, and that did not click with me. For those,
yeah, no, like that was like talk about foresight. Like that's how like it's such a quiet movie too. Like that's what I think is so interesting about it is it's such a tense movie throughout the entire game, and like I was just astounded. So, anyways, Jason,
so many owls, and then at one point, an owl actually catches the rabbit.
Yeah,
and there's a fox as well.
Yeah.
And then our girl Willa decides to add in another fucking Bible verse to that murder.
Yeah, no.
So I'm kind of with you, Michaela. I was going to say the scene where they're floating downriver initially in the boat sort of got me because they're playing that like little gentle hymn and the kids are falling asleep, and it just gave me these fairy tale vibes. Like the fairy dust is now sprinkling. I mean, clearly the kids are exhausted from running, but the fairy dust is sprinkling this little thing, and for like a moment they're safe, but really they're not safe at all because they're two little children like out in the wilderness now, and they don't really know where they're going. And then, like you said, the spider web is like right there, and the way that the water is kind of like shining in that scene, and it's just kind of it becomes sort of ethereal. And then it kind of made sense when I saw they said that Charles Lawton referred to this movie often as a I think he said a grim fairy tale or something like that. Yeah. But he sort of saw the movie as a fairy tale, which is like makes sense because the main protagonist of the film are two children. It's weird, man. There's a lot of good stuff in there that kind of makes you feel like eerie. Like the first one to me is when like the first real sign of like child abuse sort of pops up, and the mom is like coming home at night, and the way the house is all lit up, it's classic horror movie stuff. It's all dark. Like the only thing that has the scene really lit is the silhouette of the house, and then all the shining lights are on in the house. Like all the windows are lit, and you hear the little girl in Robert Mitchum having this conversation. And they're having this crazy conversation, like, where's the money? And then all of a sudden the mom knows, like, oh, he's not good. He really is asking about this money. Then he says, I'm going to break your arm, little girl. And the mom comes in and catches him, like, with the girl running away. And it's like, holy crap. Like, this is scary. Like, I don't know where this thing is going. And then, like, the boat ride. It's like, I don't know where the movie turns at this point. Mm-hmm. Like, because there was definitely a turn. It got creepy with the singing on the boat for me. I'm like, I don't know what movie this is right now, and the director's definitely saying something. So those are the two scenes for me.
There were so many different turns, right, with that. I mean, just the fact, like, have you been listening to me? I mean, oh man. And then the old man, uncle, whatever, that sees the body, right, and is like, they won't believe me. They won't believe me. Which is weird. Like, they won't believe you that you didn't slit the mom's neck and roll the car into the river. But then they go, the kid remembers and like, I'm gonna go get help. And it wasn't even like a lot of times, and again, slasher movies and stuff like that, where you go and finally someone believes you and they get killed. But it's like, no, this guy drank himself because he saw the horror and feels completely helpless. So it's on a different psychosis of level of what a slasher or monster kind of movie is, where it's like, I don't believe you, kind of like the mom at first was like, you got to stop with those stories type of thing. So it was like, that to me was super powerful, like trying to wake up the one person that said, come to me if you have any problems, because kind of was also feeling a little off about the situation. And then we know that he knows, right? That he saw the body, so he actually knows that they're in trouble, but is, for whatever reason, just so, like, no one's going to believe him because he's just the old kooky guy by the river. So there was that. And then just on a thing of also Jason saying it took so many turns. I was thinking that doll was going to fall in the river and sink down to the bottom, and it was going to be like, well, you did say that dude dropped it in the river and it went down to the bottom of the river. So I was thinking that's where the movie was going to go, and it kept taking turns. And then, the kid to react like that, like just the trauma, like you see the trauma of it's like, yeah, it's not my dad, but it's like what I wish I would have said when my dad was taken in, like it's, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that one up, because if you didn't, I was going to, because that was like probably, I almost cried there, because it's just like he literally gave the guy the money as soon as the cops got involved, and you're just like, oh my God. Because he did say that when his dad was arrested. He did say no, and then he shouted it. It's just like a complete recreation of that.
Yeah, that bookend was super awesome. Like, that's just like prime storytelling right there.
Yeah.
And also the psychosis of it, the psychology of all these people in this movie is on full display in 1955. This is so thoughtful. It's so thoughtful. I don't even know if psychology was that far along in 1955, but the director seemed to just get it.
Yeah.
He just knew everybody's motivation and how to get it out of these actors, and it's really good. Nightmarish Mother Goose Tale is how Charles Lawton often referred to this film.
Which I think is pretty much right on the money. I would even say the Brothers Grimm one maybe a bit more accurate to this.
Well, I mean, it is kind of almost because like they do call him Bluebeard in the movie, and that is a fairy tale. Like, it's about an evil duke or lord who basically marries women and like kills them. Like, this is something that's been there in our culture for a long time, which is just very interesting that like that's what we called that kind of crime, is like you would be a Bluebeard.
I heard that in the movie, but I had no idea where it came from.
Oh yeah, neither did I. I was like, I thought it was clean shaven.
Nope.
But I kept saying
I thought it was something to do with Bible, because they kept bringing up the Bible and Moses and the other kid that went down the boat and king, and I was like, oh Lord.
Yeah, no.
I haven't watched something with so many Bible references since I left Alabama.
Yeah, no, like I'm trying to think if there's anything else we can really cover here, because like I think I talked about everything I want to talk. Is there anything that you guys wanted to bring up?
No, No, I think I'll put that in my final thoughts.
Well, I will
guess.
say this, just in case anybody wants to watch it for future viewing. I'm going to watch it after this. I didn't get a chance to get to it, but uh, Guillermo del Toro actually covers his film for Criterion Channel, so you can find that online of his coverage of the film.
That's exciting. I know what I might be doing tomorrow.
That's great.
I'm
Man,
excited.
this is this is one of those movies that like it's just good how it separates itself from the 3-act structure, a hero's journey, especially for a young man, John. Because like how you like I really hated the ending with him, like because in the moment while I was watching the movie, it's like, oh man, he's been defeated. But it's like, no, it's like this kid's been through hell and back, and like of course something that looks eerily similar how the movie started. Like of course that would break a fucking kid if anything.
That would break me.
Yeah, and like oh man, just seeing the doll rip apart and the money just because at the end of the day, like all this trouble done for fucking this, and we see it in with the girl Pearl cutting it up, which is like, oh my god, like what the fuck are you doing? Why are you doing that? Because like it's money, but it's like it's just paper. It's just paper, and then it's the little shit that this guy does, like the weird movie shit that he does, is so great. Because in that same scene, the wind blows, and I thought, oh shit. The Reverend's gonna see those motherfuckers on the floor, and he's gonna know that they have the money. But then, when the wind blows, what I assumed were leaves going with the wind, it was actually the paper, the cutout paper
dolls. Yeah.
paper dolls.
The 2 paper dolls get blown underneath the house.
Yeah, like that has to mean something. You
No,
know?
that definitely means something. And I think the 2 paper dolls, because I thought it as soon as it happened, I'm like, that's interesting because there was no wind for real. There was a fan that blew those there, right? So what was the director trying to say? Thinking about it now, after having seen the movie and us talking about it, he's probably those 2 little dolls probably represent the little boy and girl, and them running like into the basement, running under the stairs.
Yeah, foreshadowing for sure.
Oh, in Portuguese, I'm going through the different, just the pictures. It's the movie is The Messenger of the Devil, or The Devil's Messenger. Is the Portuguese.
Oh, they use that. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good shot. That's what they're gonna name the reboot, the remake of this movie.
Yeah, and you can actually see the hate on there.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Pretty good. All right, so I guess it's time to wrap things up with final thoughts. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. Again, after talking about it, definitely. Well, no, there were a lot of things I liked. That old lady, I just wanted to slap her so bad. Like, but really good movie. Yeah, it definitely is like for the time that it came out and the time period. Like, so this is saying like in the 20s, this is the shit that was going on is insane. Yeah. And there's so many characters that would be interesting to follow. Like Ruby, like she then became one of those like psychos that wanted to like write the serial killers and stuff like that, right? Like that was that, like waiting outside of prison, like I love him, all for again like a magazine and an ice cream. So like what would happen to her would have been a great little follow-up. But yeah, I enjoyed it. There's some really great scenes, like kid acting for the 50s also I thought was really well. Yeah. And some really sweet moments also, like the kid realizes all the girls got the Villa, whatever her name is, presents, so he went and got an apple with the clothespin and like the little white, and I was like, and she understood, right? Like, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, pretty good movie.
I didn't get that myself. I mean, she's like, okay, the child gave me something for Christmas. It's all he had, I guess.
Yeah,
You know,
but it was very sweet. Like,
Well, it's because they had that whole moment with the apples, which he asked her about
Yeah.
Moses.
Yeah.
You know, like I think that was like the first time he opened up with an adult after this whole thing happened,
yeah,
and so it was just him being like, "See, I can trust you."
I see.
they kept bringing up apples with her. That was definitely a recurring thing. And yeah, she did have a big conversation with the little boy about the apples and the meaning, and it's the sweetest thing and stuff like that. Um, Dressing it up like that, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it was supposed to maybe be kind of like a basket, because we saw the apples in the basket all the time, and they talk about Moses and the basket and going down river. Same thing with them, right? Literally, them on a boat just going down rivers and being found by someone that takes them in and cares for them. So
Yeah. The original Moses story, and then the Pepsi flavor Jesus story too. That they brought. I loved it when they brought that up, because that's just facts. But I'm fucking talking already, so I might as well. I'll do a little sidebar though when it comes to the Ruby character, because I went all fucking hard on Pearl. I feel like it's only fair to fucking diss Ruby as well, because like again, like you said it too, is like she tries to justify like you shot him. Of course he didn't have time to reason or manipulate us. But Rachel, he gave me ice cream. He didn't touch me, Rachel.
So like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of also like, it's like that's what's crazy about this movie is the way that it simply just talks about things that was problematic in the culture in general. Because like, that's like such a tale as old as time as a young woman falling for a man that's treating her like a woman.
And plus, like, she does, in her moment of confession with Rachel, is like saying that yes, like I've given myself to other men, but like this one dangerous one, like that erased some suspicions, like, but he didn't touch me. So I get that too. But man, Ruby got a fucking, oh my god,
yeah, Ruby needs help.
Ruby needs everyone in that goddamn movie. Everyone who wasn't John or Rachel were great. And it was no coincidence either that the two most aggravating characters in this film was named Pearl and Ruby. There's no coincidence over that. I see one. That's just a cold pun. But all right. But my final thoughts. Like, I was genuinely surprised. I actually really liked this movie. I do like when a story has a very like linear narrative to tell. It didn't. None of the shots or none of the moments overstayed its welcome, even though a lot of characters I detest wholeheartedly, is only because, well, it's partially in service to the story. And of course, there's reason behind it too. It just shows how convincing and how alluring evil can be when, given to the right manipulator. And this man happened to be the master manipulator. But no BS, Rachel was like, fuck your face. And me and John, we gonna kick your ass. So yeah, thumbs up. This is an A+ movie, and yeah, it's a Christmas movie. I was shocked at how wholesome that ending was, and how like the spirit of Christmas came out from this fucking movie. Like I felt more Christmas spirit after watching that movie than actual Christmas Eve and this fucking past year of the holidays. That's how like upsetting and like cathartic I am about this movie right now. So yeah, go watch it. Everyone should go watch it. Everyone.
Wow. I don't think I've ever heard JP say everyone should go watch this movie, unless it was like Willy Wonka, maybe. But so that's great. I'm going to agree with you, JP. Like, this is, I think, a very important contribution to the film conversation, the American film conversation. I feel like this should be in any cinephile's catalog. This is sort of must-see viewing for so many reasons, because it's the first for so many different types of like horror genres and suspense and thriller. And there's a lot going on here, man. Like you could even say this thing's a psychological thriller in a little bit. It's the earliest serial killer movie I think I've seen, unless, there's something else, but I don't think there is. And this thing is just weird and rare and different and well executed. And the director really knew what he was doing, like really knew. Um, I would recommend this thing to almost anyone. I mean, anyone who can. Some people like have a weird time with black and white films, so maybe not them. But whenever those type of people show up, I try to think of a black and white film that I can give to them based on their personality that I know that will win them over. This will probably be it for I think a lot of people because this thing is excellent. Would I watch it again? Yeah, I'm absolutely going to watch this thing again. I don't know when, but this thing I feel like needs to be dissected a little bit more, and there's some things I definitely want to rewatch in it. So yeah. Also, another thing that you guys might want to check out, there's a podcast that I often listen to called Unspooled. You can get it wherever podcasts are. And it's basically two people who break down movies to like the nth degree with all the information and all the fixins. And on August of this year, of 2022, they did Night of the Hunters. So I wish I would have known that because usually when they do a film before we watch it, I try to, watch their podcast to get some insight into the thing. But I would highly recommend if you guys like this movie, check out that podcast Unspooled on Night of the Hunters. It's I'm sure it's going to be a good one.
Wait, you're saying Night of the Hunters? This is Night of the Hunter. Are you just
My bad.
okay? Yeah, they're the same people that did the Austin Powers one, right? When we did it.
I believe so. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. So, Dino, did you give your final thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Then I guess it's just me. So I am so mad that I've never heard about this film before this year. Just because this is what American cinema should be. It is an excellent example of what it is. And like honestly, it should be a bigger part of pop culture, 100%. I'm glad to hear that more and more people are discovering it. And I think that this is going to be a new kind of like green flag thing for me. Is like if someone can like talk to me about Night of the Hunter, that means they're cool.
Yep, I agree.
Is Des still in the background? Is he still backstage?
You still around here, Des? Are you amongst us? Des is giving me Night of the Hunter vibe right now.
Yes, I am.
There you go.
Right. I'm glad you're here, Des. I wanted to ask you before we got out of here, what do you got for us next week?
Next week, I'm so glad. I am so happy that you asked me because today's the day I make the official announcement.
Oh, it's official.
That Cinema Club is being hosted next week by an actual celebrity.
Who is gonna?
Me, Steve Des, and we're going to be watching her.
Her.
I don't know. That looks like a dude.
Hey, it's a new world. People can choose their pronouns today, and he goes by her. So
Awesome. I look forward to reviewing this with all of you.
yes, I thought it would be appropriate because of the whole Chat GPT and all that stuff. So yeah, we'll watch that next week. So for Michaela, JP, Eldon Dino, Jason Echoes, me, Steve, that's TV. We'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.
Boy.